Hello and welcome, I'm Stormo, and this is Project Cars 2, and I feel like maybe I've got a little bit of explaining to do. I don't think I've ever covered a racing game on this channel, despite the fact I really like racing games. I have a lot of fun playing them, and if I just do something, I'm going to move myself a little bit closer to the screen here. I'm using a slightly different recording setup to my normal setup for this video, and hopefully for all future videos. I've got a really nice setup now that doesn't involve weird tripods all over the place. Okay. Anyway, Project Cars 2, yes. I got review code for this too, which is why this video is going live, hopefully when the embargo lifts, once it's uploaded and all that kind of stuff. And it all should come together pretty well. Now, there are a couple of things to talk about with this game. And the first thing is to talk about me and racing games, I guess. So, I've for a long time been into racing games. I haven't covered them on my channel just because there hasn't really been one I've been able to cover. I probably could have covered the original Project Cars when it came out, but I never actually did that because I'm a fool. And if you forgive me one moment, I've got a very loud volume here that I need to adjust if I can remember how to work my monitor's volume controls. That's the wrong direction. Come on, there we go. Okay. That's a little bit better. Oh yeah, that's better. It was very loud in my ears. Because of my setup, I've had to do this in a particular way, and oh boy. Okay, so let's talk about Project Cars 2. First off, let's have a look at the menus. I'm going to go through everything sort of in a particular kind of direction for this game because there's a lot to talk about, a lot to get through. If you never played the original Project Cars, which I highly recommend, by the way, it was actually a really good game that was a game that did get a number of fixes after it launched too. But yeah, so you've got a whole bunch of options here: driver profiles, my profile, some options here, and various other bits and pieces. You've even got community, all that good stuff. Now, the real meat of this game is the career mode, and I'm going to actually start a new driver for this particular thing. We're going to look at a new driver option. I've actually got a couple of drivers already created, one for me and one for my dad, who's also been playing this on my account. And what am I going to call this driver? I don't want to use my real name because I'm using it for one of the other driver profiles. And I don't want to use my dad's name, obviously. So I will use this name here. Yeah, that's my real name. And I will use my other surname because I actually have two surnames. Yes, it's true, I actually do. So that's a bit weird. And I'll use that as my initials. And I am based in good old Australia. So there we go. So that's our new driver. Now that we've done that, let's have a look at the career mode. And this is new for this. So when you start, and only when you start, like from here, you can start. The career mode's been changed from the original game. If you played the original Project Cars, the career mode in that game was like a calendar that you cycled through every year on. In this game, it's a little bit different to that. It's a bunch of tiers. Now, each of these represents an event with multiple races and, in fact, in some cases, multiple championships. So it's not just a simple thing of where you begin. Now, you can see here that there are 6 tiers, and you start at tier 6, that's the lowest, and go up to tier 2 and tier 1. Tier 2 and tier 1 are locked, I believe, until you complete at least a set of events in all of the previous tiers. The other thing you can see here too, when you pick a tier, you can then go through and have multiple options for some of these. So, for example, if I pick Junior Ginetta, we have the option of going on to the Clio Cup and then down through this section here. You can actually see the yellow banding. Kart 1 gives you options, so you go into the Ginetta Challenge after it, and then you go forward. And F1 Rookie, or Formula Rookie, sorry, goes through that, but you can also choose that as you go through. So you can sort of see there. This is the only one where you sort of have multiple choices all the way through the career from the look of it, or at least for these middle sections before you go into GT3 and what I believe that's Pirelli World Challenge. Sorry, I was misreading the logo. And of course, if you start at the top with the Formula One, this is where you can do things like as it's got Formula Renault, Formula X, and IndyCar. And this game does have licensed IndyCars too. Whereas if we go down here, we can do Clio Cup, and that gets us into the touring car side of things. Now, I believe we can just jump around. Once you get through it all, you can just jump around and pick the other events as well. I'm going to pick the Junior Ginetta Challenge for this one, partly because I've actually, on different profiles, I've done both Kart 1 and Formula Rookie. And I haven't done this. We got a cool intro video. This is all, I think this might be in-game. If not, it looks nice either way. There's no commentary over this though. It's just this very short intro video. It doesn't pop up a logo or anything. It just makes a lot of noise. So yeah. And here you can see what we've chosen. We've got the series, and then there's a second series that we have to beat the first series to get through. Now, I believe beating the first series involves coming top 3, which is always good fun. The other things we've got here, you have the option of a shorter season as well. So you can do the full 5-race season, or you can do a short 2-race season here as well, which is kind of cool and lets you progress through the game faster. I believe everything has those options too. So in this case, we could do Alton Park Fosters and just Snetterton 200. Or the other one we can do is all these UK races. I'm going to pick the short one. We're not going to get through... this video is probably only going to cover a single race, which will be the Alton Park one. So it's actually not going to matter that much. So yeah, so we're not going to panic too much about that. I also have rules and regulations. So this gives you what the rules and regulations are. You can see it's going to be pretty involved. It does tell you like the points you get for winning. It tells you the practice qualifying race, all that, grid placements, pit lane, all that stuff. So it's pretty involved, and this game does not mess around, as we'll soon discover. So let's pick a car and a team. So the only car we can pick, of course, for this series is the Ginetta G40 Junior. So I'll grab one of those, and then we can pick our livery, which is basically the team. And there's a lot of different ones. I believe most of these are made up. I don't think there are any real teams here. But there's some nice looking ones. I like the Dexburn one. And I really like this Barlow's racing team. There is, I remember getting one in one of the other series that was actually a Project Cars branded one. Also, can I just point out, this particular piece of music that you hear in the background is back for this game. It was in the first game. It's a freaking great piece of music. I'm really happy it's back. I like the look of the Dexburn one, actually. I'm going to pick that one. So we'll sign our contract. That's what we want. And we'll confirm our contract. We'll create our driver. Unlike Forza 6 and I believe Forza 7, you cannot choose the gender of your driver. You're stuck being a male driver in this game. So that's a little bit of a letdown, unfortunately, especially because that's something that has sort of been advancing in other games. Forza Horizon 3 and Forza 6 both did it. Forza 7's doing it. Maybe GT Sport's doing it, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of that game to really know if that's actually doing it. And okay, so this is the dashboard for the race. Actually, this is the dashboard for the career, not the race. So the race options there. You see the track, the car. We have the calendar for the race. You can go in and see what it all is. Because we chose the short version, I believe we don't get to do 3, 4, and 5, but that's fine. We have manufacturer drives. Now, because I have successfully done Janetta before, I actually haven't. My dad did that on my account because I've got this as a pre-release game. The only way he can play it on his PS4 Pro is if we do it that way. And then you have these things, which are events. These will unlock. You can see what the requirements are down there. These are invitational events that unlock as time goes on. And there's a lot of these. These used to be in the game as one-off things that you could do, but they put them in their own category now. And you've got your progress and all that kind of stuff there. As well for the careers, trophies, lifetime goals. Lifetime goals is cool because this is like what you've got to do to get through. This is kind of your goal to beat the game. And you can see there's a Hall of Fame there and all that kind of stuff. So that's a really cool thing to do. The other thing with Project Cars that is different to Forza or Gran Turismo is in Project Cars you don't get... And I'll go into the race. Now, I'm not going to do practice, and I should do that, but we'll set the race length down a fair bit. I'll set the race length to about 10 minutes, so I'll have 15 minutes qualifying. I won't use all 15 minutes of it, and then we'll do a 10-minute race. The Janetta series uses endurance racing style races, so there's no lap time, there's no amount of laps. It's time passes and then the race completes. The other thing I'm going to do is just check. Now you might be thinking, yes, I have these turned very low. I'm playing on a controller right now, and the AI in this game is freaking nuts. So yes, these are very low because any higher and it will actually not be possible for me to win. Yeah, like I say, the AI in this game is nuts as hell. So anyway, let's start the race. This should load us into the track. We'll have a fairly lengthy loading screen, and we'll get to see what this game actually looks like. Now, I'm running this on a regular PS4, not a PS4 Pro. I have played it on a PS4 Pro. Unfortunately, the review build I have does not have HDR support enabled. I'm sure I pressed start then. Did I? Yeah, there we go. It's also sometimes, this is a pre-release build, so sometimes got a little bit of, stuff. I'm not 100% sure that the day one patch has been applied to this build, actually. But yeah, no, I have encountered a few bugs that I'm assuming will either be fixed by that patch or will be improved. But for the moment, yeah, this is review code, and yeah, there's a couple of things missing, one of which is HDR color. So I haven't been able to see what it looks like with glorious HDR, but it does look nice in 4K on the PS4 Pro. Runs at pretty much a solid 60 too, on the Pro and on the regular PS4. The original Project Cars was always a very optimized game. So it's good to see that it still is. Now, this is our qualifying session, so we have tuning setup options, and there's a couple of really cool things to go into here. Just once I get to it. Yep, Race Engineer. So what you can do, if you're not familiar... So I'll go to Edit Setup first, actually. This is a good way. So this is how you do all your engine tuning and all that kind of stuff. And you can set your tyre pressures and all that. I might turn the tyre pressure down a little bit just for some extra grip. Not a huge amount, but, you know, just enough. Brake balance looks 70-30. Shouldn't it be 60-40? That might be fine. I'm going to adjust my brake balance slightly. Let me... how do I... that's right, it's that button there. Yeah, okay. Might just adjust that brake balance. That seems a little bit... other way. That seems a little bit tough to me. Oops, didn't mean to do that, but that's fine. And yeah, you can do all these settings. Basically, different cars will have different options for this. So, cars have more gears, there'll be more gear ratio settings, and obviously, yeah, you've got all this stuff here. Fuel loads, air, traction control, all that. I actually have, in fact, I should check that that's enabled. But the other thing you have too here is that if you go Race Engineer, you can actually do a thing where, so say you're having a problem with, say you're struggling with turns, instead of tuning it yourself, you can say, okay, well, I'm not stopping in time, and it will actually make an adjustment. I'm not stopping in time. It'll say, hey, okay, well, maybe you want to move the brake bias. It gives the option. It's, yeah, a little bit simplistic, but if you're not really sure how tuning options work, I think this is a really good way of learning how that works. I'm not going to make any changes. I'm pretty happy with the way I've set this up. So we'll keep that as it is. We'll back out of here. And yeah, we'll save the changes. Yeah, save our existing slot. That's cool. We'll back out. And we also have a couple of options. In fact, I'm just going to check some options now. I've actually had to turn driving assist on for this, and I'm also going to have the driving line indicator on because I am a bad person who cannot race properly without it. And I'll explain how that works once we get into it. Now, I haven't actually driven this track, so this could be hilariously bad. But we'll see how we go. Like I said before, I'm playing on the controller. It's automatic pit driving. You can do manual pit driving if you're a madman, but it's automatic to about this white line here, at which point the manual control does not take over. Okay, I thought the manual control was going to take over there, but it did not. There it goes. Okay. That went a lot further than I thought it was going to, actually. Okay, so we are driving. Now, this is a qualifying session, so if you're familiar with real racing, you'll know that in qualifying, what you want to do is set a fast lap. And we are gonna overcook this corner a little bit on our outlap. We're on the outlap now, so this time won't matter anyway, so it's fine. We'll just get used to the track for now. Couple of things to note. Obviously, you have in-car cockpit view. There's a couple other camera views if I press the button. That was actually the in-helmet. This is an in-helmet view. You'll notice the engine sound is a lot more muted in this view, and you can see at the bottom of the screen, you can actually see helmet view. It also slightly darkens the screen. I'm not going to change the camera next until I get past this timing point up here, for a couple of reasons, not least of which is that this is a nasty corner that you've got to get the hang of to do properly, but that's fine. So, then you have this view, this view, this view, this view, and this view. Now, you can see the subtitles down there, but you may not be able to hear the audio because that's coming through the controller. It may have been picked up in the background of my mic audio. But yes, this is one of those games that uses controller speakers for the pit crew, which is really annoying and you can't turn it off. Or at least in this build I've got, you cannot turn that off. The original Project Cars did the same thing, so that's fine. I'm going to try and set a decent lap this time around, so we'll try and handle this corner here as best we can. Now, you might be noticing too, with the racing line, it doesn't actually show up on every corner. It's basically like Forza's braking only line. It's not a full racing line around the whole track like in Forza. So it's not a perfect guide, which is not a bad thing, I guess. But it does mean that there are some corners that it doesn't actually show a line on. And this one, for example, the game considers not really hard enough to show a racing line. This corner again. But then you get one for this much tighter corner here. And I've overcooked that. Whoops, that's going to be a bugger on this lap. This isn't going to be our qualifying lap. That's fine, we'll just do it next lap. I don't intend to spend 15 minutes doing qualifying. We're actually going to do the race. But I do want to set a qualifying lap that isn't last. So we'll go for a little while. Let's just pull the speed down a bit. Okay, there we go. That was better around there. One thing that I probably could be doing that I'm not is using manual shifting. Even though I'm playing on a controller, manual shifting is actually generally better, but I have to do some major button configuration reassignments, which I haven't managed to do because the default configuration for this game for manual shifting is L1 and R1 on the back of the controller. And I generally prefer it to be X and square on a PS4 controller, or X and A on an Xbox One controller, because they're under your thumb when you're racing. And unlike a lot of games, you're not really using the right stick for much. Oh, jeez, that was awful. Unlike a lot of games, you're not really using the right stick for much. You can use it to turn your view around like that. You probably never will, but you can do that if you really want. You know, but yeah, in general, you never will do that. This ain't no Euro Truck Simulator 2. So what you want instead is to have those shifting under your thumb. And Generally, you're using it as a oh, jeez, I'm overcooking this corner again, too. Generally, you're using it as a sequential shift, like a paddle shifter, which works for most cars. If you have a wheel with the right accessories, you can use a full H-pattern shifter with this game. It fully supports that. Force feedback through the wheel is really good, too. I've been playing it on the wheel as well. Like I say, for the purpose of this video, I'm just doing it on a controller. I've been playing it on a wheel. I generally use paddle shifting on a wheel anyway. My dad uses full-on manual clutching and shifting, and he's freaking great at it. One day I might record him actually playing a video so you guys can see how quick he is at the shifter. Because he uses the clutch too, which they don't often use in real racing cars, by the way. Most real racing cars, if they have a shifter like that, it's clutchless. So he's doing it properly old school. I've overcooked. Oh, geez, this is shocking. This is actually worse than the last lap. And the last lap was worse than the previous one, I think. Yeah. This is awful. Well, I'm not sure I'm going to qualify higher than 12th. Going to give one more lap after this to try and get it. And I might, like, not talk as much during that lap so that I can actually do it. We'll see how we go. But yeah, what I'm going to do this time around, though, is not mess this corner up. So come in there, break down, there we go. There we go. That is how you basically do that corner. I didn't quite get it right, but it was still a vast improvement over my previous lap. So that's nice. And again, I'll just, yeah, a little bit hot there. In general, you actually want the arrows to be green. If you're using the brake line, you want them to be green around the corner, not blue. Blue means you are taking the corner a little too slowly. The other guide, if you're using automatic shifting, the other guide is if the car shifts down into first gear, you've gone too slow. You want the car to be in third or fourth. This game, I am finding, with the automatic shifting, actually, I am finding that you can fairly easily control it. A lot of racing games have really naive sort of automatic shifting abilities where they will do things like shift up on you during the corner. Which you don't want them to do. The last thing you want when you're driving through a corner on a racetrack is to shift up. Right? You want to hold the gear you're in when you go into the corner. So it's a third gear corner. You don't want to shift into fourth until you're out of the corner, until you're on the straight again. This game, that's something you can actually force the automatic shifting to do, which is really nice. Yeah, I'm just being a little bit more cautious. We're taking this in a third gear. That's a better way to take that corner. I think I might end up qualifying first on this lap. Because I just realised I did that last lap. Even though I messed it up near the beginning there, I actually did come in a pretty good time. It's good. That's fine. That's a fine corner. I'm going to set this... if this comes in as a first qualifying, I'm going to actually pit and go into the race. Even if I lose spots. So... that was a good time. What I'm going to do now is return to the pit box, and then we're going to end the session. I can end the session. Yeah, skip to end. And I ended up qualifying second by 1/69 of a second. That's fine. That's fine. That's front of grid. Let's go race. So that's the main thing we wanted to do now, is have the race, and we'll get that very shortly, and it'll all be good. So, this is the race. Once again, you set all of your things, pit strategies, tuning setups, all that. Let's get started. And while we're doing the race, yep, first race of my career, enjoy the ride, bring it home. Because I'm using auto, I can get away with some stuff here. Like I say, 90% of the time I do race in manual. I just haven't been bothered reconfiguring the controller settings to do it. If I was on a wheel, I would definitely be using manual. That was a pretty strong start, but I probably didn't need to brake there. Let's get around this corner here. Yeah, it was an excellent start, actually. I got quite away from them. Like I say, the AI is turned down. In the reviewer's guide I got, Slightly Mad did actually suggest the best thing to do was to set the AI to a point where you're just barely beating them. So get it to a point where they're providing a challenge that you can overcome, and then once you start pulling ahead of them and thrashing them, raise the AI a bit. And you get better and better at it. The main thing with this game, like a lot of these kind of racing games, the main thing with this game is track familiarity is 90% of the key to victory. Once you've learned a track, and you know the braking points, and you know the gears you should be taking the corners in, and all that stuff, you're going to have a good time. You're going to do really well, and you'll be able to increase the AI until you get better and better at the game. And that's how Forza 7 works, how the Gran Turismo games have always worked. It's how this game works as well. I think I mentioned before, this game is a little different to the Forza games and Gran Turismo, where in this game you're not given a... you don't buy new cars with money. You don't set the cars up yourself. You don't take the cars to the events. In this game, whatever cars you use are supplied for the event. So you don't own cars in this game. You don't collect them or own them like you do in Forza or GT. And that's actually kind of a nice change. I've always felt that the owning aspect of those games, like, the reason they're called... Oh, that was not good. The reason they're called garage races is because of the fact that you build a garage. So you own all these cars. You collect them through the game. And this is not a garage racer. This is much more about being on a racing team and experiencing track day racing and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more, I guess, about a professional racing career than either of those games ever were. And I sort of feel like the garage racing thing is kind of an outdated concept now anyway. I feel like the last couple of Forza games, it actually starting to feel a bit tacked on over, given how often you can customize stuff. But on the other hand, it does give you a bit more customizability over the events. You can, essentially create your own event by selecting what car you want to take into it. In Forza, it'll adjust all the other cars in the event to match what you're bringing to the event. But then again, there are still events that are quite restrictive by what cars you can bring to them. In this game, everything is restricted by the cars, but at the same time, you jump from event to event to get experience in different cars. So if I want to do IndyCar racing, I have to work my way up to it, all that kind of stuff, which is much nicer, I think. We've got, 7 minutes, and we're out by a good second or so. So as long as I don't go too ham-fisted, yeah, that's what I thought. So you just lift a little bit there and you'll be fine. And I did that corner not quite as well as I would have liked, to slow down a bit too much, but that's fine. We got around there in the end. And yeah, so the other thing, what else was I going to say about this? Oh, I need to talk about the weather. Now, this track isn't going to exemplify it. This race is actually happening on a slightly overcast, cloudy day. Well, that's sunny, cloudy, that kind of stuff. But this game has proper dynamic weather, proper dynamic time of day, and the weather is freaking amazing. When it rains, puddles will collect on the track, which have a significant impact on your handling. The first game did do this. There was puddles and stuff like that in the first game, but it's nowhere near as detailed. Well, puddles actually weren't a thing in the first game, now that I think about it. It's nowhere near as detailed as Project Cars 2. It's just a huge improvement over what you could do in that original game. And that's great. It's adds an extra dynamic to the races. It's not, if you remember, Forza 6 had wet weather that was just like a track option. You just selected the wet weather version of a track and it was just always raining all the time. This isn't like that. This is fully dynamic weather. And it feels really good. The only, I guess, downside to the dynamic weather system is that when it stops raining and the track dries out, you don't get dry lines forming on the track. If you're familiar with real motorsport, you'll know that after it's rained for a bit, the weather can then soften up. Sorry, not soften up. After it's rained, the weather clears up. And what happens in real races is that the racing line around the track, because the cars are going around it, they're keeping that part of the track warmer than the rest of the track. And what that means is that all the water on the track evaporates on that part of the track. So, for instance, here it would be over that blue part. There would be a dry area over that blue part of the track where the cars have been going through, because that's where every car is going to go take the line. In this game, they don't really simulate dry lines. And look, that's fine. It's a complex thing to simulate. I understand that. But the downside is that what it means is that when the track dries out, it just kind of dries out uniformly, and you end up with a dry track that has puddles here and there, and then they just sort of slowly evaporate as well. But the end result is that for all the realism the weather system adds to the game, the way the tracks dry out is kind of not realistic at all. and it does detract from that a little bit. The only other thing I'd say too is this game actually has at least one track that I've raced on that happens in very cold conditions. It's a track set in New Zealand of all places, actually, and yeah, it has very cold conditions, and it's, oh my god, it is undrivable. The event you have to do there, which is one of the Formula Rookie events that I did, in these icy conditions, and it was not possible to maintain grip, it was not possible to maintain tyre temperature, it simply wasn't possible to do anything useful in the track. It was actually quite horrible, and it ended up causing me to fail a series because I couldn't complete the race. It was undrivable, how bad it was, and I feel like setting that as an event, like, the problem in that case isn't the physics in the car at all. There is no problem with the physics. The physics were fine. The issue, more than anything, was that the race was unplayable because of the fact that there was this accurate simulation of the race physics, and everything was working fine and all that kind of stuff. So it's just one of those really, really strange things that this game did on me, and I'm sure that maybe I could have found a tuning setup or some other thing that would have made that race actually playable. But in the situation I had, I tried a lot of things. Mostly tried setting very low tire pressures to try and get some semblance of grip. And oh, I overcooked that corner quite badly, but that's fine. I've had the guy in second on my back all race. He has not gone away. He's actually, yeah, because I messed that corner up, he's actually quite close to me and may actually pass me as we go up here. But he's been right on me all race. I don't know if you guys have noticed how close he's managed to get. But I haven't opened up, and that's a good thing. That's a really good thing, because it means I've got the AI set just how I need it to do well at this. Oh, I did that corner beautifully then. I'm pretty happy with that. Although I think the car might have dropped a second. 2 minutes remaining. There we go. So yeah, we're going to go through this whole race. Hopefully we're going to win it. And I'm going to show one other thing that is actually not a career race after this. So we've got 10 minutes of going around this track with me commentating over the top of it. I think I'm doing okay. I know this probably hasn't been the most exciting video to watch, but if you know your racing games, you'll understand what's happening and how to do this. There we go. That was a really good way to take that corner. I don't think I've actually set a fastest lap for the race yet either. So, which is not a problem. I feel like, yeah, that's been my problem coming in here. I just haven't been taking that corner at the right line. And then this corner is very tight. This is the shorter version of Alton. It is a longer track, but this is the shorter version of it. So anyway, let's get up here. There's 1 minute, which probably means there'll be one more lap after this one. Various reasons, so that's fine. I just have to get the hang of that. Oh, overcooked it. Guy in second's going to catch up to me really badly, which is great. But we'll manage that. Yeah, he's caught up to me. That's fine though. Let's just slow it down. Of the three starting races, I think the Ginetta might actually be the easiest one to race too. It just feels a little bit nicer and easier than the other ones. Now, I am going to have to do something here because I'm getting an annoying thing happening. So I'm just going to have to pause the game very briefly, and then I'm going to have to press a quick button, and then I'm going to unpause the game, and we're going to keep going. Okay, sorry about that. My watch was going off. I set a timer on my watch, and it just went off, and I couldn't stop the race, so I had to do that very quickly and find a good spot to do that. But the start-finish line is about as good a spot as any to do that. So yeah, you're not really seeing the dynamic track. That was terrible. I'm going to lose first place now. Or I'm going to have to drive really defensively around here to stop him from taking first place. I don't have any of the rules. You can set damage, you can set penalties, drive-through penalties, time penalties, all sorts of stuff. And obviously damage, this game has full damage modeling, all that stuff. It's actually all turned off by default. So it's something you want to turn on. Basically, I suspect that when you get into the higher events, it may actually turn on by default. Oh, no. I overcooked that corner. I'm not going to come first. On the last corner. Well, second last corner. There's one more corner. Maybe he'll overcook the last corner. I don't think he will. AI drivers rarely overcook things in this game. I'm not going to catch him on brake either. Damn. Well. Second's still fine. Just that mess. That was a mess. But it does show that setting the AI to something where they can still beat you is the best way to do it. So that is pretty good. So that's a race. So we did all right there. We came second, and we did get the fastest lap in the end too, which is nice. 1:24.12. So that's good. And here you can see the driver roster and the team rosters as well. So that's always really handy. So yeah, so that's all good. Anyway, there's one other thing I'm going to show before I finish up this video. And I'll just continue through this. It'll put me through the next career, but we're not going to do the next career. We're going to do something a little bit different. If you just give me a moment for it to all load and come up. Yeah, this is all going to happen very shortly. I'll just come in a little bit here. Stretch myself a bit too. I've been sitting in this chair for a while now, unfortunately. I spent a lot of time actually getting stuff set up. So what I'm going to do is back out of this. So that'll be for the next career. But instead of doing a career, I'm going to do a... where's my D-pad gone? Where's my input gone? There we go. Okay, cool. It just wasn't responding for a moment there. Okay, so... yeah, you've got online races. There's unfortunately, the online isn't actually available right now, so I can't test it. But what you also have is custom race, and that's what we're going to have a look at right now. I'm going to pick, probably not the Huracan, actually. Probably something slightly less intense than a Lamborghini Huracan. Might pick a... actually, yeah, let's... hang on, do we have... might be in... Let's see, what are my options here? Just looking for something, see if I can find it. It doesn't look like it's in here. Oh, that's kind of annoying. I didn't really want to do this. Oh, man. Talk about swallowing your pride. Okay, let's see if we can find it in the all cars. So this is just going to give us an idea of all the cars that are available, but I'm looking for a particular car that I don't think is in the game. There's no GM cars at all, are there? There's Cadillacs and Chevrolets, but none of those are what I'm actually looking for. I think I'm gonna have to swallow my pride, and I'm gonna have to pick an FG Falcon, a V8 supercar. Because what else are we gonna do this track in? There's no Holden Commodore. I can't pick a Commodore, guys. I'm gonna have to do this the right way. So this is a V8 supercar. That's not a real supercar livery if you're unfamiliar. I'm not gonna do 6 laps. I'm gonna do. Let's set. Okay, cool. Let's just do 3 laps. That sounds alright. I don't want this to be a super long race. Date type, default date, current date, custom date. So you can set the date how you want it. Default date is in autumn. I can actually set the season to be spring. Yeah, we'll do it in spring. I'll set the custom date. Now, I'm going to look something up here. I know that at the moment it is the 18th of September. And I'm just quickly going to check something on my phone. I think some of you are probably figuring out what I'm doing here. It'll be obvious very shortly. Yeah, there it is. So I think some of you will kind of know what I'm doing. If I set this date correctly, you will all have a really good idea. So if we go 8 of Oct 2017, we'll do 3 laps around session start time. Actually, should be about... Actually, the session start time should be around 10:30 in the morning. 11 o'clock. I'll put it at 1. I'll put it about 1 o'clock. Time progression, we'll set time progression on. And you set the speed that the time progresses. So in order to have it progress a little bit through the race, I'll set it about 1400. I think 5x should be good for this. Weather slots, and we set the number of weather slots as well. So we want changing weather, we can do that. We can have clear or random, and these are all the different types of weather you can have. And you see the effect they have there. So this is what the dynamic weather gives you. Wow, there's a lot. Yeah, snow. That is horrible. That is very horrible. Wind, fog, becoming sunny, and random, which will just swipe through them. What I will do is I'll set there to be 2 different weather slots. And I might start in rain, so we can see what the rain looks like. We'll do light rain, and then I'll set the second weather slot to be clear, so you can see the track drying out. I might add a 4th lap just to spread that out a little bit too. So I'll do 4 laps of this, and weather progression sync to race, or real time 2x, 5x. We'll sync to the race. Yep. Yep. So that way we will get the weather transition as things go. It'll be a standing start. There won't be mandatory pit stops because screw that. Although pit stops are fun. They do add a bit to it. But this way we get to see what we can do. And I will just make sure that my...
You can save up to 4 custom event setups to your...
Oh, okay, cool. You can actually set a custom event. Okay, that's really neat. I didn't actually know you could do that. Set the rules and regulations. Yeah, so that's all turned off because... boy, I'm not going to be able to get that. Opponent settings, I am going to turn right the hell down. So we'll set that back to 20 and 20. And I think 15's... Wow, you can actually have... If I set this to a 22 field, I think the frame rate will suffer. But that would actually be a pretty realistic... Yep. Yep, and everyone's going to be racing in Ford Falcons, unfortunately. And we'll randomize my grid position as well. You can actually set this for... This is a really neat feature. You can actually set what position you want to be in on the grid for these custom races, which is a really cool feature. A lot of racing games don't do that. So let's start the race at Mount Panorama. So you can see all the custom... All those things, and there is a 211 in this car. Whew, that's actually relatively close to real supercars times on this track. Like I say, I'm a bit disappointed I can't race a Holden around here, but well. But yeah, this is Bathurst. If you've never heard of Bathurst, it is one of the great racing tracks, and I'm not saying that as an Australian. I'm saying that as someone who knows about racing tracks. It is I forget his name, but one of the lead developers on Project Cars, the main guy behind Slightly Mad Studios, has actually ranked Bathurst as one of his top 3 tracks in the world, alongside Spa and the Nürburgring Nordschleife. I'm a little bit questionable on the Nordschleife. I don't think it's that great. I think I would actually put Circuit de la Sarthe above Nordschleife, personally. But he's put it there. I'm not going to do too much to my tuning setup. We will start the race. Okay. Let's see how this goes in the wet. This could be rough. Okay, so we're starting not too far back, actually. That's pretty good. And I've got traction control working my way. And boy, these cars sound good. I know this is the Falcon, but geez, it sounds great. We came around there, not too badly, but we're losing a bit of grip. Let's try and get up Mountain Straight as fast as we can. I've got a lot of engine noise in my ears, by the way, guys, so I might be talking a bit louder than normal, because this is loud in here. That was too fast. That was surprisingly decent. As we go up around Forest Elbow, actually, that's Forest Elbow. This is Guns Corner, isn't it? I think. Oh, he's had a bit of a whack. This is Guns Corner. As we go up the mountain. If you've never seen Bathurst in action before, I'm going to tell you right now, this is an intense track. I know it reasonably well from having raced it in Forza. I think this rendition of it feels the most real, compared to what it looks like on television. We're not going to go flat watch it. Here again, you can see that thing where there's no racing line around that corner. Okay, this is a nasty bit of track. And you can probably notice here, the track does kind of drop away underneath you. And if you don't know what's coming here, there's actually a corner there as well. And I can tell you right now, many, many greater drivers than I have come very unstuck down there. That is not the friendliest of ways to come down there, and especially not in the wet like this. So there is a reason I added that transition to dry weather in this, because I knew what was going to happen. Anyway, let's get down Conrod. So this is called Conrod Straight, and I am not on it. Now I am. Good. Conrod is very fast. And this corner coming up is the fastest corner in all of Australian motorsports. I think there might be one at Sandown that's a little bit faster. But in general, that is a very fast corner. That's a relatively quick corner. And then we go back onto Conrod. So that little kink there, they had to add because Conrod Straight was too long. And what would occasionally happen was a car would go flat chat down Conrod Straight, have to slow down into this corner at around 260 kilometers an hour. And sometimes the brakes didn't really handle that very well, especially not in the wet. And there's been a couple of incidents actually there where there was a famous incident, that was a bit too fast, where I think it was a driver named Denny Holm in 1987 at this track died on that corner because Conrod Straight is too fast. And that's why he died. So, let's get back up the mountain. Oh, a little bit too sharp on the brakes there, but that's fine. Normally I'd be doing this in a Holden because that's the proper way to race Bathurst is in a Holden Commodore, not a Ford Falcon, like the heathen creators of this game have chosen. If you're unfamiliar with Australian motorsport, particularly V8 touring cars, it's essentially, for a long time, Australian motorsport centred around a battle between Holden, which is the local Aussie manufacturer, who are actually owned by an American company called General Motors, and Ford, who are the evil American company. And obviously, being Australian, we're all Holden people. There are windscreen wipers, by the way, but I don't think these cars have them, so I can't turn them on. But yeah, so obviously, true Australians are Holden people, and evil American un-Australian people are, well, I guess we're doing this now. I guess that's how we're taking that corner. So that's what happens if you don't take that corner properly. Especially in the wet. Now, if I'd had damage modelling on, that would have gone a lot worse than it did. But of course, I don't have damage modelling on because why would I do that to myself? Whoa. Let's come down here. Let's get into Conrod again for the second time. Let's hammer. That's a better approach to Conrod. And you can see our rain is clearing up now. Now, one thing I didn't notice there was puddles forming. So maybe I didn't have the rain heavy enough for the puddle formation. The track has dried out a fair bit. I've messed this up. You might notice the huge sand trap there. That also is a very favourite resting place of certain V8 supercar drivers. Me not included. Normally that bridge would have Dunlop logo on it, but obviously they couldn't get the Dunlop license, so it doesn't in this game. Oh. So you can see what's happened now that it's dried out. The track is just completely dry now. It's acting as though it's a dry track. Which is fine. That's fine. But it does mean that I did not take that corner very well. It does mean that you don't get a dry line or anything like that. So we didn't really get to see puzzle formation or anything like that, but that's fine. That's fine. We're just going to race up here now. And we've got one more lap after this. Yeah, this is Mountain Straight. You go pretty quickly up here as you need to. In the wet, it's a bit scarier. So you come around Forest Elbow there and up into Guns Corner. Or is it Guns Corner and Forest Elbow? I can't remember now. A lot of the signage here isn't correct to what's really at Bathurst. At real Bathurst, you would see super cheap auto signs everywhere, and a lot of Australian brands that obviously they didn't get the license for. Just did a really nice first sector, apparently, probably because it's dry, so I can go a bit quicker around here. Oh, but not too quick. We've got to be careful. Oh, Oops. That happens a lot there. And you'll get to see just how scary this is, because I'm going to do it at speed this time. So you've got to brake, and yeah, again, well, whatever. Look, honestly, that corner's optional, is all I'm going to say about that corner. If you tried that in a real Bathurst race, you would end up doing a lot of harm to your car. In the game, we can get around it. Oh, this corner here. So, fun fact, the very first corner at Bathurst, the one at the end of what's known as Pit Straight, which is named for a person, not for the fact it has the pits on it, by the way, is called Hell Corner. I'll get to it and you'll understand why it's called Hell Corner. It should be fairly obvious. See, one of the things Bathurst has is a very long sort of main straight, and you can get a lot of speed very quickly on that main straight. You know what I haven't stuffed up? The chase. I have not stuffed up that chase once in this, which means I will screw it up on the next lap. Let's get the final turn right. Now, and this is what I mean about not seeing the racing line. So, there's no racing line there, so you've got to know the braking markers. So you cannot rely on having that racing line turned on. So this corner up here is called Hell Corner. And it's called Hell Corner for a pretty good reason. There have been entire races that have ended the first time a car has gone around that corner at Bathurst. The Bathurst race that we run, which is coming up in October, in fact it's coming up on the day I set this race, is a 1,000 kilometre race around this track. It's 161 laps of this thing. And it's done in these cars, V8 supercars, which are basically based on Holden and Commodore cars. There's also Nissans. There used to be Volvos and Volvos and Mercedes as well, but they're not in it this year. It's basically Ford, Holden, and Nissan. I'm not sure what's going to happen next year now that both Ford and Holden have discontinued the Falcon and the Commodore. The Falcon being an Australian car, not the American Falcon that was back in the 1960s. It's a new car. But the Falcon, I'm not sure what they're going to replace it with. Probably the Mustang, which unfortunately isn't really an Australian car, and I'm not really happy about that. The difference between the Falcon and the Mustang is the Falcon was actually designed here in Australia. I believe it is based on a US platform, but yeah, it was designed here. The Commodore was designed here as a platform, and in fact, Americans got a version of the Commodore. Oh, jeez. I will never do that corner correctly, I'm sorry. Americans did get versions of the Commodore. I think there is a version of it in the US at the moment, actually, based on the current Commodore. But I could be wrong about that. Anyway, the point is that I'm really curious to know how V8 supercars, or as they're actually better known now, they just call themselves supercars now because they're probably going to have to move away from the V8 motors that they've been powered by for a while. Well, I'm going so fast here, I'm getting a racing line there. Hopefully I've done a really good entry and you can see just how quick Conrod is here. See, 273, let's just dab the brake, take some speed off as we come into this corner. There we go, that was nice. And then we've got to slow down a bit more for this corner. And then we'll just pick up a little bit of speed as we come out here. Onto the rest of Conrod. And then slow down again. Oh, was that too slow? No, that was not too slow. That was fine. That was fine. That was a good race. Oh, the start-finish line at Bathurst is actually... This game actually gets that wrong. The finish line at Bathurst is actually further back from the start line. Primarily to make the race exactly 1,000. The track is 6.2 kilometres in length. To make the race a perfect 1,000 kilometres, the finish line when you finish the race is actually further back on the track than where the start line is. But otherwise, that went well. I came... What did I come? Fourth. Okay, I came fourth. I'll accept that. I was a full 26 seconds down on the leader, though, but that's fine. What was my best lap? 2:30. Yeah, most supercars do... In race trim, they'll do about 2:06, 2:07, 2:05, maybe. I think the record is 2:02, thereabouts. But yeah, so that was Bathurst. It's in this game because all good racing games have Bathurst in them. I'll back out of there. And that was Project Cars 2. Like I say, I really wanted to just show off a couple of bits and pieces about the game and how it works. I think I've done that. I think this has been a slightly longer than usual video because of that, but that's fine. It's what we wanted. I'll let it load back here, and I'll back out of that as well. We'll go back here. And yeah, so that's Project Cars 2. I'm a big fan. I like this game a lot. So I think, I think I'm going to be putting a bit more time into it. Like I say, if you have a wheel, it's a much better experience, as all racing games are, really. To get the full racing experience, you need to invest in a wheel if you're going to do that. I happen to have one, with shifters and all kinds of good stuff. Yeah, so anyway, Project Cars 2 is definitely a game that's coming out. And I kind of feel sorry for Slightly Mad because Forza 7's coming out in a month, and so they don't have a huge window, and I think GT Sport's coming out soon too. They don't have a huge window in which to make an impact, but I did notice when I was watching the Sandown 500 on the weekend, the race here in Melbourne, that there were ads for Project Cars 2 all over the place there, so they're pushing this game a bit, which is good, because this game deserves a push. It's a very good racing game. Project Cars 2. If you like racing games, you should probably buy it. I've been Stormo. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.